Okay, so I just listened to Punishing Gray Raven, Sie Liebten Sich Beide for the first time by myself, and holy crap, the evolution of classical music. Let's listen to it together and talk about it. First of all, Sie Liebten Sich Beide is from one of my favorite German poets, Heinrich Heine, that was born in 1797 and died in 1856. Many of the German lieder composers, now lieder being song, Franz Schubert, Franz Liszt, Felix Mendelssohn, Clara Schumann, Richard Wagner, the list goes on and on and on. All these folks used Heinrich Heine's poetry and set it to music, most notably Hugo Wolf. The poem says this: Sie liebten sich beide, doch keiner wollte es dem andern gestehen. They loved one another, but neither wished to tell the other. Sie sahen sich an so feindlich, they gave each other such hostile looks, und wollten vor Liebe vergehen, yet nearly died of love. That was my German. Sie trennten sich endlich und sahen sich. In the end they parted and saw, nur noch zuweilen im Traum, each other but rarely in dreams. Sie waren längst gestorben, they died so long ago, und wussten es selber kaum, and hardly knew it themselves. The beauty of German poetry is that it tended to be about love, it tended to be about nature, it tended to be about the human condition. It was such a common thing to use music as a vessel for these poets and for this poetry. The Liederabend dates back to the 1800s, and musicians and lovers of music would gather around someone's home and they would perform works together. It was a really wonderful experience for performer and audience to be really close and to be intimate in the same space. So anyway, to go back to Sie liebten sich beide, this opening here, Sie liebten sich beide, that's very much in the style that we would hear of some of these German lieder composers. If you think of Ständchen by Strauss, leise fliehen meine Lieder durch die Nacht zu dir. Or a piece like Cecilia, also by Richard Strauss. They have a similar structure to this. Now obviously they're with piano, but actually Richard Strauss has orchestrated many of his art songs. So this is totally within the realm of reality. There are also operatic arias that are sung by soprano that sound like this. This reminds me very much of Achich Fuss from Die Zauberflöte and many of the other Mozartian German operas. So we know the translation, we know what is happening, but how does that relate to Punishing Gray Raven? To be honest, I don't know. But it's interesting that this character I'm looking at here is holding a flute. Perhaps she's a classical musician. She is a person of class, of wealth. Maybe she's an aristocrat from Germany or from a classical time period. I don't know. I don't know how this relates to her, but I find it very interesting, the connection between the Heinrich Heine poem and also this standard Germanic soundscape in the orchestra. Let me stop there too really quickly, because what's really interesting is that Sie sahen sich an so feindlich when they gave each other such hostile looks, the music swells and there's this minor notes here. And it's amazing how we're word painting, which is a very popular term in classical music, where we're painting words with music and also with pitches. We're giving a picture to an audience by painting certain words and by delivering emphasis and color. And you really hear that in this. As she pulls back when we say step, step. That's a half step. And that creates this internal pressure and stress. Like, oh. Little musical gestures like that really help set the scene, tell the story. And clearly that dream did not come true. They did not stay together. They parted. And you hear that in the music. This, as we build up in this piece, this reminds me very much of a medieval time period, a classical time period, a Baroque, a Renaissance time period. And so there is this elegance, this feeling of dancing, and I don't know, there is this sort of, we exchange and we take turns, we switch partners, and we were dancing around in a big circle, and there's this sort of, I don't know, in a way, my brain goes like, this person is being forced into marriage due to money or something, and she's a musician and she's well educated for the time, and has her own thoughts and feelings and wants to live her life, but she can't because of various reasons or because of the time period or whatever. So there's a real like, I don't know, it's very bouncy and dance like. that trumpet melody is quite hopeful, and this shift is more like a battle phase or accessing superpowers, or I don't know, playing the flute, and suddenly the flute is this magical weapon that it reminds me, it's actually not dissimilar to Die Zauberflöte in the sense that Tamino uses a flute. There's an opera with an opera singer video where you can watch the entirety of Die Zauberflöte with me on the YouTube channel here. I'll put a link right here. There's a lot of similarities in there, I think, just based off of the picture alone. I don't even know what this character's name is. I don't know anything about this. But this trumpet, it's very hopeful and very enthusiastic, and it's almost like it's like summoning up some part of this character and unleashing it through the power of music. Very curious. That too. Da, da, da. That is just like hope everlasting, forward momentum, not let anybody get in the way of what I want. That's a real like, I'm powerful, I'm strong, I'm capable. That's the essence of that. That melody is so empowering and so lovely, and there's almost like the power of love in there too. First of all, I mean, this section is so interesting as a professional classical trained musician. The way that we're taking the voice and we're modifying it to fit into this electronica. I think there's a character intention perhaps in this too. The way that we're using it, and obviously the character in this video, her hair has changed. And so perhaps this is a different version of this character that maybe isn't so good and so pure as we heard in the intro, which I think was to set up this purity aspect. Now we've got this like shadow version, right? The modification of the vocalism by the computer, I'm sure, is a really curious choice, because I think it does symbolize this sort of alternate personality or alternate version of this person. To hear this as a classical musician and ponder to myself, is this a one-off thing? Or is this something that really is a new beginning for classical music, where we take, is this on the fringes, or are we taking this and this is the wave of the future? Whether or not you could hear this in a symphony hall, listen, I would love to hear all of this music programmed, especially this, because I mean, what a fresh, sick take on a piece of art song literature that's been performed by plenty of people. I mean, here's an example of what it sounds like. Sie Liebten Sich Beide by Clara Schumann.
so Heinrich und
This piece is blowing my mind because essentially this is like taking art song, modifying it. I don't even think this has ever even been done as far as I know, where we take a piece of traditional German poetry and German art song and turn it into a complete new composition. I mean, this has happened within art song where we take poetry and repurpose it and it sounds different. I mean, it's so many songs where you have the same exact lyrics, but it's written in a totally different way. Hell, even Puccini and Leoncavallo, they both have two versions of La Bohème, Puccini's version and Leoncavallo's version, the more popular one being Puccini's La Bohème. Like, that happens all the time, where they take a source material and it's composed in the way that the composer wants to compose it, but it's the same lyrics in some ways. And it's just crazy that it's just doing its own thing. Anyway, that was a tangent, but the bells signify the sort of magic, and they signify this sort of something's not quite right. It's really interesting to have these little nods to characterization within the music that you can sort of deduce what is happening to a character, and the bells are very mischievous in that way, and there's a playfulness rather than a like true evil or something really terrible. It's interesting. Wait, that's the same melody as the Clara Schumann. Sie liebten sich beide. Oh, wait. Whoa. That's interesting. And what's crazy is that this actually brought you to classical music and you didn't even realize it necessarily. Obviously, we have the singer, but there's way more in common to that Clara Schumann version of this that I played for you. So that's just a little taste of art song in a contemporary time period. I mean, theoretically, could you call this an art song? Yes, because it uses German poetry, German singing. Technically, even though it's not a piano per se, I would consider this an art song. And I think these definitions, they have to be blurred a little bit because we don't live in these time periods where we're having a Liederabend where there's a pianist and a singer and a small group of people. I mean, yes, those happen within the classical circles, but when we talk about it in video games, that's not really happening. It's extremely cool. What do you think about this whole like journey from German art song and German Lieder, especially if you're German? I'm very curious to hear about this from your perspective as a German. Like this video, feel free to subscribe if you want. There are links in the About section if you want to support the channel and support me. There's no pressure. As always, thanks a ton, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.